Care from the Vintage Gardener. Welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk to you about garden design. Now last year I did a garden design video, some tips for gardening design, and that's still applicable, but I'm not going to go over that because, you know, I was doing that. I started my parterre garden. Things, you know, work, things don't look quite the way you want them. And so, you know, periodically, maybe yearly, you have to kind of take a step back and refine your gardening style. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. So if you guys remember, my parterre garden has 3 sections to it. And the 3 sections are the perimeter beds, the middle garden, and the memorial garden. And I have a picture of, let's see, here's the the plan I have. And so the perimeter bed is what I call the color wheel. And these beds right here are the middle garden. And then these triangular beds are memorial gardens. And of course, this is the fountain. And all the brown things you see are pathways. And so this whole color wheel concept was because I had watched a YouTube video by Danielle from North Lawn Flower Farm, and she was talking about longwood, but the way she described their flower walk, which is a kind of a color wheel concept, it didn't have as many colors. Now, the thing is, I never seen it. So this was kind of based upon what I was told somebody who went to Longwood said. So this is kind of like hearsay if you're a lawyer, and I am a lawyer, so that's why I'm using the term. When I got to see the color walk, and I'm going to show you, hold on a second, let me pull this back up. I'm going to show you some of the color walk photos from Longwood. And so this is, let's see, I think it's like the pink section kind of edging towards the red section. And then this is the yellow section, and that's kind of pops. And as a matter of fact, you can see this one section where my cursor is popping. And then I took it from a different angle. And as you can see, this is like hardcore. You know, you're in the yellow section. I think of all the sections in Longwood, the yellow probably stood out the most because the color I think is the brightest, but this is the red section. And the red was equally nice. As a matter of fact, they got this coleus, they've got some caladium, they got some canna back here. And I really, really, really like that. And so I loved my parterre garden. I loved what I had. But it did not look quite the way I thought it was going to look. It was a lot more wild looking. Just the combination of all of the heat that we got last year just made the flower beds grow completely out of control. And so rather than having something manually, this is kind of what I ended up with. I'm sorry, that's the Longwood picture. This is what I end up with. Okay, so this is the pink section. I did a lighter pink, darker pink, and this section over here is one of the memorial gardens for my grandfather. The colors of my one grandfather's flower beds are white, green, and pink. And so as you can see, this dahlia, which is snow country, is falling over. As you can see, all these zinnias are not standing up in the bed. They're kind of laying down. As a matter of fact, this is the path right here, and this is the edge of it. And as you can see, there's not actually even a walking path there. Some other pictures, this is the nasturtium, this is cherry rose jewel. And as you can see, it was edging over the bed. Actually, this was taken a week after my birthday. And I think by the time we actually got a hard killing frost that destroyed this, it had actually crossed the entire bed. Excuse me, the entire walkway. And then let me see, I have another picture here. This is the memorial garden from my my maternal grandmother. And, you know, this is a chrysanthemum, it's chiffon. I think that there was a dahlia back here, it fell over. And so it's kind of coming out of the bed. And so just to give you guys an aerial view of the garden, This is how everything looked. And you can kind of see in certain sections, like right here, like this right here is a dahlia. As a matter of fact, let me make the screen bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. This right here is a dahlia. This is the garden path. It completely obliterated the path. As you can see, that I think this is part right here. There's a rose bush right here. This is zinnia. As you can see, the zinnia is leaning over the fountain. Over here, there is a path that goes right here. You can barely see it because of the plants. I think in the green were falling over, and so the one memorial garden. And then when you go over here in the yellow section, you can see that plants are falling over. By mid-October, that chrysanthemum was falling over here. And as you can see, this entire section, it's like right here. It's like, oh, is there a walkway under there? Because you can't really see anything. Hang on a second. You can't see anything because things were just kind of, falling over. So don't get me wrong, I liked it. Every year the garden is going to look different. I did not anticipate that my flowers were going to take off like that. So what I'm changing for next year. So, now that I've seen Longwood, there are a couple things that I'm going to change based upon things I saw. Number one is staking. When I was at Longwood, I was looking at the internal mechanisms, because everything was just standing up so straight and it was very compact looking. And so they have all kinds of twine. I stopped one of the gardeners and asked them, how they were supporting things. So she told me that they use metal rebar, just regular rebar, to stake the dahlias. That's something that I'm going to try. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to Lowe's because I can get cheap rebar. I'll probably just spray paint it black so it kind of blends in. And they basically have a single rebar, and then basically as new shoots come on, they kind of take a piece of twine and kind of as it's young and more flexible, they tie it around that rebar. So basically each plant is held kind of more compact by the rebar, and using twine to loop individual branches. And even with the chrysanthemums, they use some sort of dissolving twine is what they said. And so they put for smaller ones, they put 3 bamboo stakes and kind of do a triangle. With something bigger, they do 5, and they do a star, like the Hildreen star and that sort of thing. So that's how they keep everything compact. And I think that'll help with the look and give me a lot more visual wow factor, because with my zinnias, they were all falling over and spread out. And I think if I ring them and stake them, all the heads will be closer together, so it's going to look like a solid pink or solid red or whatever. So that I'm going to be trying color blocking. I think that's one of the things that they did to achieve that. The other thing is the more foliage plants, because as you guys could see from the one picture, this is a coleus. This is I think they said it was the Beale Street coleus. This is in the red section. Obviously, that's a huge impact. The other thing was in the yellow section, they had this is from what I remember. Let me see if I can blow this picture up. I believe this is Rudbeckia right here. Or I think it's some sort of Rudbeckia. And so that, I'm sure, number one, it's stakes. But the other thing is that has a really full head on it of yellow flowers. It gives a lot of visual impact. And so that's something I definitely need to do. I need to do some more foliage plants. And so for that, this year, I chose a couple of foliage plants from Swallowtail. It's their Wizard series of coleus. So I did Wizard Red Velvet Red, which is right here. And that is a bold red color. Now, it only gets 12 to 14 inches, and I'm not really worried about that. And the reason being that my soil seems to be very rich. Even though it says 12 to 14 inches, I don't really believe that it's going to be 12 to 14 inches. I think it's going to be a little bit taller, which is going to be fine. So that's one of the ones that I'm getting from Swallowtail. The other one is Sunset Coleus. And so this is more of this is an orange color that's going to go in the orange section. And then last but not least, there is a Coral Sunrise, and this one has salmon pink, but I'll be quite honest, I know this is the way it looks on the screen. I don't know if it's going to look like that in reality. Grew a bunch of other things that said that they were salmon pink, and quite frankly, they looked, when I bought them, they looked more salmony, but when I actually got them into my garden, they were more pink, and I think this one's going to be the same. So I think that's going to give a lot of visual impact too. So in general, I just want more color blocking. The other thing is that I definitely need more, I need more primary colors. It's not that I don't have a lot of color, because I do, but I think I tended to go for softer things. And this is really talking about the pink, red, orange, and yellow sections, because the green, I feel like the green, the blue, purple, and white section, it is what it is. To me, I feel like those colors are a little bit more sedate. I mean, especially the green, because the leaves are green in a garden. Green is almost like neutral. And, as I've been seeing, like, more and more people using purples and blues, that's looking more neutral, or maybe it's just because I'm oversaturated with those images. But when I saw the purple section in the longwood section, I was just kind of like, oh, that's really well looking. So it's not so much those colors to me just are in general are a little bit muted. But I think with the pinks, the reds, the orange and yellow, it can be a lot more bold, and I use a lot of softer tones. And so I'm definitely going to be adding some more primary colors. So for example, in the red section, I've already hit up Lowe's and Home Depot, y'all. This is an Asiatic lily. It's called Blackout. This is, as you can see, this is a primary red. That's going to add impact. It's bright. With, hold on a second, dahlias. Okay, with the dahlias, sorry. With the dahlias, this one I have right here, it's called Garden Wonder. This is a bold red. The other red dahlia that I got is called Babylon Red. Once again, something very bold. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be adding a lot more solid colors. Not solid, but primary colors, because I think it's going to add a lot more dimension, because right now, like in my red section, I think I have a lot more burgundies, like that sort of thing. It's a lot more deep, but it's not really bright. And so I think by adding more primary colors, it's going to brighten up those sections. And like I said, add a lot more dimensions. Like, because in the orange section, for example, I use a lot of like I would say almost like a creamsicle kind of orange, is very soft. And so slightly more washed out. So I think some punches of hardcore orange is going to elevate the look of that. And then I need to work more on structure, because I do have germander. It got overtaken by everything, but I think with staking the flowers in the bed, I'm going to probably be using like stakes and doing like Hornova netting, or Hortonova netting is how it's pronounced, to keep everything up so they don't flop over on the germander. And with the germander, I'm just going to go get like maybe the 12-inch stakes from like wood stakes from like Lowe's, or maybe just bamboo, and cut them down to a foot, and then basically twine it in between it so that the germander grows through. And I think with keeping the plants off their germander, number one, they won't stretch trying to reach the sun, and I'll make sure I start pruning them to kind of get them to kind of thicken up, and hopefully that'll start looking more like like a shrub. But for right now, I just need to keep them from being smothered by the other plants. Some other things that I'm going to be doing to help with the garden is that, number one, I'm going to change my fertilization thing that I did. I'm still going to use the Dr. Earth, but when I've been researching, I can't remember what organic brand it was, but they were saying that the first dose of fertilizer you give plants when you put them in the ground in the spring should be something heavy in phosphorus, so something like bone meal. And then after a month, like when it comes to June, which is when the real things really start blooming, then give them like, you know, your general fertilizer. And so I'm going to do, so basically, I think the way I'm going to do it is in maybe like mid-April or maybe early April, because that's when stuff starts coming out of dormancy around here. Just put bone meal everywhere. And then, you know, maybe I'll do another dose in May. And then, you know, like Memorial Day weekend, put down my Dr. Earth, because the Dr. Earth is 2-month feed. And that should probably, and like last year I put down one dose of Dr. Earth that took care of it for the season. So hopefully things will do better. I mean, not that things didn't do better, because they did. I mean, we'll see, because if it grows completely out of control, then I'm probably not going to do that again, but we'll see. Because like I said, my fertilizer, my soil's kind of rich. I just like adding things like bone meal and like the Dr. Earth, because it increases the microbial content, and those microbes have a symbiotic relationship with the roots to help them uptake nutrients. So like I said, we'll see how this goes. I will probably be making a lot of bouquets this year. Okay. The third thing that's going to make a difference in my garden is I definitely have to get on a better regimen in terms of fungal and pest issues. So I have a thing of neem oil. I have orchard spray. I have the kind you can just add to the to the end of your hose. I'm just going to be, I'm going to be doing maybe orchard spray 1 week, and maybe 3 weeks later doing neem oil, and just do it every 3 weeks just to stay on top of things. Because by the end of the summer, it was powdery mildew, it was horrible. All the leaves were looking horrible, and it really affected the way a garden looked. It didn't look as lush as I know it should have been. Okay, so last but not least, the thing that I started getting into last year, and I'm definitely going to continue to do, is specimen gardening. And I know you're thinking, what is that? I know for you, those of you guys who've seen the video on the chrysanthemums, I'm getting, what did I say, like 48 cultivars from King's Mums. And I think it was Brad from Garden Evolution was like, where are you putting all that? Well, the thing is, I only ordered 2 of each plant. Speaking of which, I actually did order some more chrysanthemums, and I have to do a video about that. So rather than doing like, mass plantings of a few things, I'm going to be doing a lot of varieties, just smaller amounts of those varieties. So basically I will be just getting like 2, maximum 3 plants. And the reason I'm doing that is because my purpose with gardening, I think what I'm trying to achieve in my garden is a little bit different than most people. So, for me, I'm an attorney. I have a busy life. For me, gardening is about like creating kind of like a moment at a time where you can just kind of like stop and sit and just be. And so I do things, everything I do is designed to get you to spend time walking through the garden. So if you look at my garden design, there's really not straight lines. There's not a direct way to do things. If you want to go from point this to point thing, you have to kind of like walk the path. It takes a long time. It's not really quick. And I noticed this, especially when I need to get back to the house quickly. It's like, oh shoot, I should have built a cut through so that if I needed to get from point A, to here quickly, I could do it. But I didn't design a cut through into the garden. And so the reason mass plantings of a couple of plants don't work is because it's just kind of like the way your brain works. Like, I know why people tell you to do it, because it creates a visual impact, but that's not the only way to create a visual impact. It's like Misha from Farm Luck says, more is more. And if you guys, I subscribe to her internet cable channel. She has one of the most opulent gardens I have ever seen in my life. She has so many different varieties, like with tulips. She showed us tulips last year, and she said her favorite varieties. She showed like, I want to say like 50, and that wasn't all the tulips she had. She had more than 40 types of tulips, even with her dahlias. And all of the tulips look so different. It's not like she stuck to a certain color palette. It was just a rainbow of colors. It was just different shapes. And when you kind of look at it, it's like, oh my gosh, how on earth could you put all that together? But when you saw it all in the landscape, it was very opulent. It was cheerful. It was actually relaxing. It's not like, I know people say, oh, try to create restful. It was still very restful. But you don't have to have mass plantings of like, 3 plants just to get an impact. Like she said, she's right, more is more. And so I'm kind of going more for a variation on theme. I know in one of my videos, I said, I'm doing this. They're like, it's like your eyebrows. They should be sisters, not twins. And that's what I'm doing in the section. So with the 2 pinks, it's a variation on the theme, but they're not identical. And so one of the things I noticed, like, for example, at Longwood Garden, was that they had a number of walkways, but the one walkway, when you walked in, it was like the traditional, or I guess what's the contemporary method of planting, which is mass plantings of a few plants. And I was just noticing how people were interacting with it. And so when people first walked in, everyone stopped, take a picture. Oh, it's so pretty. But because the rest of it was just same, once they took their pictures, they sped straight through it, didn't look to the right or to the left. It was just because they had already seen it. They knew it was the same. They sped up. Then contrast that with the flower walk, which is where I showed you guys, where I showed you guys the color wheel that they have. The sections were different. I mean, although like on each side of the walkway, there was symmetry, the sections were different. They didn't have the exact same plants in every single section. And so what ended up happening was you went a little bit, you stop because it's like, oh, there's something different here. What is this that's different? Okay, I go a little further. Oh, well, wait, there's a difference here. So one thing I noticed was that everyone, including myself, it took so much longer to walk through the flower walk, even though I think it may have been the same distance as that main corridor, simply because there was a lot more differences. And because it was different, your mind was registering that it was different, and you were stopping to see what about this is different. So when it comes to plantings, it's not that I'm just going to have a hodgepodge of just every single plant is different. Okay, there are going to, like I said, it's going to be smaller, like 2 or maybe 3 plants as opposed to 5 or, or like 10 plants. The plants may look similar. So for example, I think one of the chrysanthemums I got was called Samson, and the other one was called Piranga. And they look somewhat similar. Pull up what they actually look like, because they're and I think actually the blooms on it, now that I think about it, are small, are different size. So let me share the screen right quick. Okay, so this one right here is Piranga. Okay, so this is class C bloom, so they're going to be smaller. And then let me go back and type in, because I think the other one I got was called Samson. So it's slightly different. So they're both reflexes, but I think the size of the blooms are different. So this one is a 2A, and that's Piranga. And oh, I'm sorry, that's Samson. Samson is 2A. Okay, but then Piranga is right here. Okay, so okay. And this is group 4 and it's C. So the flowers themselves look similar, but Samson is probably, I think the size A blooms are maybe like 3 to 4 inches, whereas class C are smaller. So they're going to be, one's going to be big, one's going to be tiny, but they're going to look similar enough that you still have a visually, it's going to look similar. It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, like this clashes, but it's going to be different enough that you're going to slow down. And so I think to a certain extent, I did achieve that in my garden this year. I mean, now they say familiarity breeds contempt. I was used to it. I walk through my garden, several times a day. And so for me, by the end, I kind of, was doing it pretty quickly. But when I had a couple people come over and, I'm taking, around the garden, showing them things, I'm here talking, pointing out, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this. And like, I noticed like, I'm like in the first yellow section and I look around and, oh, the person I'm supposed to be showing my garden is like, just, finishing looking at the red section. So they've got the second red section, the 2 orange sections before they get to where I am. And I'm like, oops. And so, when I had to go back to where they were, kind of wait for them to catch up. And I just realized like how much slower people were moving through it. And that, it was like a step, stop and look, a step, stop. And so it was just, and so, yeah, it was really forcing you to slow down, which is what I want you to do in the garden. I want you to slow down and enjoy a moment rather than just being like, oh, visually, this looks nice and keep going. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do this year in my garden. Hopefully I've achieved it. We'll see how I do. At the end of the season, I'll see how I feel. I'll see how it looks. Did it look the way I'm looking for it to look? Does it give me more of a wow that I was looking for? I mean, it's not that my garden didn't wow, because the people who saw it were blown away by what I had done. But it's just that in my mind, the way I am envisioning the final product, what I thought I was doing and how it actually turned out were 2 different things. So I just have to tweak it until I get it, so that when I look at it, go, yeah, okay, this is definitely what I wanted to look like. So anyway, guys, that's it. I'm sorry, this video is very long, but it's kind of hard not to have a long video like this. So if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section, and I will see you guys in the next video. Like I said, I got some bulbs and tubers from Lowe's and Home Depots. I got peonies, lilies, and some other things. And so we have a break in the weather. I'm going to get them out on the ground because those are cold hardy. And so I wanted to do this so you guys kind of understand why I'm choosing the flowers or the tubers and bulbs that I'm choosing. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.